3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Police Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Whole lot cooking today. Got Moist Mike and also Stuart Kovacs sitting across the other way. And we take you all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. John U. Bacon, who is an author and had unprecedented access to the Michigan football program for a book that he released in 2020 and is very close with Jim Harbaugh, is going to stop by 40 minutes from now. And then at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific, we will chat it up, or 1:20 p.m. Pacific, we will chat it up with Brenden Rice, who is the USC wide receiver in his fourth or fifth season in college football. Was at Colorado, now at USC the last 2 years. And he is the son of the legendary Jerry Rice. So we'll chat it up with Brenden Rice later on in the program. All righty, let's start things off. There's a whole lot on the table today. We saw the Victor Wembanyama debut from last night. He played well in the fourth quarter with 9 points, but the Spurs did lose to the Mavericks as Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving took over that game in the final few moments. We'll touch on that. We'll get into a bunch cooking with the 49ers and the Dolphins. But I got to start with the Tennessee Titans, who really, their run of, I guess you could say, excellence came to a close or came to a transition when they elected to get cheap, and it ultimately cost John Robinson his job as the general manager when at the draft 2 years ago, he traded away A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles and refused to pay A.J. Brown, and they tried to bring in some wide receivers, and they drafted the big wide receiver in Treylon Burks, who's really not done much so far in his first 2 years in the NFL. At that moment, I'll never forget it. We were in Las Vegas. We were doing the draft show, and my first reaction when that trade happened was, wow, what a major win for the Philadelphia Eagles. What a dumb decision for the Tennessee Titans. And I thought it sent a sign to the rest of the locker room with a team that, even though no one ever viewed Tennessee as this great team, but they were a team that was consistently in the playoffs. They were dominating the AFC South. They went to an AFC title game where they had a lead for a little bit up against the Kansas City Chiefs before the Kansas City Chiefs do what the Kansas City Chiefs do in the postseason, and that's dig themselves in a deep hole. And even when they look like they're not going to be able to find a way to climb out of it, they do so. And the moment that trade happened, I thought to myself, if I'm Derrick Henry, I'm saying goodbye. The fat lady is singing, and I'm ending my tenure with the Tennessee Titans. But that didn't happen until probably now, because 2 years have gone by. This football team, even though they got off to a good start last season where they were 7-3, and then they got injured and they didn't win a game down the stretch, and they ended up the season 7-10. This year, this has not been a year where anyone looks at Tennessee and says, wow, I really got to be fearful of this football team. We all know Mike Vrabel's a great coach, but Ryan Tannehill isn't a great quarterback. He could only take you so far. Now he's injured, and it looks like you're going to see Will Levis start this weekend, but you may get some Malik Willis onto the field as well. And yes, they were aggressive at times this offseason in acquiring a player like DeAndre Hopkins, but they just traded away Kevin Byard to the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is a team that is probably in the process of tearing it down, especially when they just brought in a new general manager to kick off this season. I don't expect Vrabel's going anywhere unless he gets tired with the organization and wants a new start and wants to take over a new home with some more foundational pieces. But these reports now about Derrick Henry being available and how people around the NFL believe that every player is available for trade on Tennessee, and that was per NFL insider Jordan Schultz. And then you even had a report from Buck Rising, who is a local talk show host that does cover the Tennessee Titans. He said the Ravens are the team most interested in acquiring Henry as of yesterday, but any potential deal could fall through if the compensation isn't right. So he's available. I don't know at what cost. He's in the final year of his deal. If you're thinking that Derrick Henry, especially with the way that we undervalue the running back position, and Derrick Henry's still a very successful back and could be a force for a team, is going for a first-round pick, then you're delusional. Now, could you argue that maybe you could get a second-round pick or a third-round pick? Yeah. And if Tennessee gets a second-round or even a third-round pick, I'm trading Derrick Henry. Because as good or as great as Derrick Henry has been or can continue to be for a short window, he's not going to win in Tennessee, and his best years are behind him. Now, he'll still be a dominant back for another year or two, maybe even 3, but you're never going to win with Derrick Henry with the way this roster is currently constructed. You had an opportunity in 2020, and you saw the apex was that this football team was just a good team and was not a great team. So now, I'm not even just saying do what's in the best interest for your player, but it's also what's in the best interest of your organization, because you now need to, for the future, welcome in the current day of football where you don't build your team and the identity of your team shouldn't be around a running back. And as much as I love Derrick Henry, when you think about Tennessee, the first thing you think of is Derrick Henry. And that's a problem. Because in the year of 2023, moving forward into 2024, 2025, 2026, you don't win in the NFL if the face of your team is a running back. So, Tennessee, evaluate the market. You could have a hardline stance right now, and you could leak things to Buck Rising, and you could have Buck say, oh, yeah, they're interested, but a deal could fall through if the compensation isn't right. But when the trade deadline quickly comes around next week, you need to trade Derrick Henry because this team is going absolutely nowhere this year. Now, I do believe 3 teams should be on the phone and should be harassing Tennessee to get a deal done. Because all 3 of these teams that I'm going to mention, they're good teams. They're very good teams. But right now, with the way that they're currently constructed, I don't think they're going to be a popular pick, or maybe they don't have enough to find a way to represent the AFC or the NFC in the Super Bowl. Let's start off with one of those teams. A team tonight that kicks off week 8 of the NFL season, where they do host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Orchard Park, and that's the Buffalo Bills. Last year, every single person sat on their platform and they pounded the desk for Brenden Beane, who's familiar with the Carolina Panthers for working there, to go acquire the services of Christian McCaffrey. Brenden Beane didn't elect to do so. Brenden Beane didn't want to give up the draft capital. Now you're still going to get a very good player, a player that right now in the year of 2023 is not as good when healthy as Christian McCaffrey, but it's not going to cost you a king's ransom. Brenden Beane absolutely should improve his football team, where we've been at this crossroad with the Bills where they pay Josh Allen, they expect to win a Super Bowl, they expect Josh Allen to do everything, but then they criticize him in the offseason for trying to do everything, and they don't run the football enough. And I'm not saying James Cook is a bad back. James Cook could turn into a very good back in the NFL, and we've seen glimpses of it. But I know what Derrick Henry is. And can you imagine, just from a physicality standpoint, you line up in a backfield, Josh Allen, who's a freak of nature and is a large dude and is a burly dude, with another freak of nature, large burly dude in Derrick Henry. I don't think there'd be any red zone problems in Buffalo when you could line up in the backfield with the threat of Josh Allen through the air and on the ground, and also Derrick Henry in the backfield with 2 tight ends, assuming they're healthy, and Dawson Knox, and then Dalton Kincaid, who you just drafted. And oh, yeah, by the way, a pretty damn good top 10 wide receiver in the sport, top 5 receiver in the sport in Stephon Diggs, and also a very good number 2 in Gabe Davis. That gives the Bills a little extra pop. That gives the Bills a little extra sizzle. And that improves that football team. And right now, the Bills are getting to an area where they seem lifeless. And that doesn't mean that they're a bad football team, but they're stuck. And they're stuck on the level of here, and they thought they were going to be all the way up here. And ever since they were hovering around being all the way up here, they have slowly started to fall down. So, with that being said, let's provide a little jolt of energy to this team and a little bit more of an intimidating presence and identity and a little bit more balance on the offensive side of the ball. And the Buffalo Bills not only should be calling for Derrick Henry, they need to acquire Derrick Henry. Now for the other two teams. Let's circle in and stay on the AFC. They suggested Buck Rising that the Baltimore Ravens could be involved. I've been very impressed with Baltimore this year. Outside of the Pittsburgh game, which they should have won, and then the wide receivers had the dropsies, and then also Lamar Jackson threw a terrible interception when the game was practically in his hands, and he snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And Joey Porter Jr., who the Steelers need to play more, by the way, and start him, he had an incredible interception. This Ravens team, outside of that moment, they've been a damn good team. And the Ravens showed you last week up against the Detroit Lions that everyone, including yours truly, was praising and talking out the wazoo how great Detroit is. They opened up a can of whoop ass on the Detroit Lions last week, and they made the Lions throw in the towel. You could even say at the end of the first quarter, but really at halftime when it was 28-0. Lamar Jackson right now is playing like he's the MVP of the NFL. But on offense, they have a lot of names, but they don't have a lot of guys that are really effective because injuries have been a problem. Like, we know Mark Andrews is a stud. Zay Flowers is promising. But you're bringing in a lot of guys that are brand names like Odell Beckham Jr., but the brand hasn't been that successful the last 3 or 4 years in the NFL. And we know that Derrick Henry has been the kryptonite to the Baltimore Ravens. We saw him in that playoff game a few years ago throw that touchdown pass and dominate them and emasculate the Baltimore Ravens in that game when the Baltimore Ravens were the number 1 seed. And we saw Tennessee eventually run that success all the way to the AFC Championship game. So go get Derrick Henry, and we talk about an intimidating presence. We know that Lamar Jackson's one of the toughest people to prepare for, and you saw it last week. As long as he's healthy, the mobility, the way that he extends plays, and you don't have a damn clue if he's going to run it or if he's going to toss it downfield. You go get Derrick Henry and a run game now that no J.K. Dobbins, you've dealt with injuries, you've been able to survive, and you put so much on your quarterback's plate. Man, you have Lamar and you have Derrick Henry in the red zone and the presence of a big tight end like Mark Andrews who's athletic. That's going to be very tough to defend. And there's a case to be made that right now the Baltimore Ravens are the second best team in the AFC. Miami has some trust issues. Buffalo has some trust issues. We saw Jacksonville lose a big game to Kansas City earlier this season. No one else in the AFC West has been able to touch Kansas City or the rest of the AFC. So I evaluate a team like the Ravens, and I say, why not? Go get a known commodity for Lamar Jackson instead of living in this state of ambiguity and hoping and praying that guys are going to be able to be healthy. The Ravens have kind of been similar to the way that the Packers towards the end approached Aaron Rodgers, where they would bring in a lot of guys that used to be good names, or they would be hoping that they could stay healthy. And each and every year we look around and say, wow, that guy wasn't able to find the fountain of youth. Or, oh, that guy wasn't able to stay healthy. And it was like, well, no bleep, Sherlock. And then finally, a team like the Dallas Cowboys, I think they should acquire the services of Derrick Henry, or at least inquire. And you may say, Zach, they have Tony Pollard. But remember, the all-time leading rusher in the history of the NFL, Emmitt Smith, joined me last week in the CBS Sports Radio studio, sat right over there to the right of me, and he said it was a big mistake to get rid of Ezekiel Elliott. And at first I was like, well, Zeke is kind of washed up. And he said, well, you have to look at the style of Tony Pollard and then the style of Ezekiel Elliott. And Tony Pollard's not an every down back. You need a bruiser. And there may be no better bruiser in the NFL at the running back position, and there is no better bruiser in the NFL in the running back position the last 3-4 years than King Henry. So for a team like the Cowboys that have their limitations, where we know they have a really good defense, but on offense, the offense has derailed their season the last 2 years in those playoff games up against the 49ers when the defense was good enough and the quarterback wasn't, and you saw Tony Pollard get hurt. Go bring back a 1-2 punch And Derrick Henry right now is better than what Ezekiel Elliott was and Ezekiel Elliott has been this year for the New England Patriots. So those are three destinations for Derrick Henry and three teams why there should be enough of a market with those three teams and enough of desire from those three teams where a deal should get done from now until early next week on the trade deadline. Baltimore, get a deal done. Buffalo, pressure to get a deal done. And Dallas, pressure to get a deal done. Because even though a running back doesn't feel like in the year of 2023 it makes or break your season, in season acquiring someone like Derrick Henry can make you separate yourselves from the pack when you look at teams like Baltimore, maybe gives you a little extra jolt of energy if you're the Bills and gets you back on track in the approach that you're trying to be when you look at a team like the Dallas Cowboys. Who needs to acquire Derrick Henry, and do you think he'll get traded from now until the October 31st NFL trade deadline? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. When we come on back, will Sam Darnold show why Brock Purdy is a system quarterback this weekend? And will Tua Tagovailoa show that his MVP worth is more valuable than Tyreek Hill's MVP worth for the Miami Dolphins, with some reports that are indicating that Tyreek Hill will not be available this weekend for the Miami Dolphins? We're talking 49ers. We're talking Dolphins next. It is the Zach Gelb Show, off and running. Very busy Thursday edition of the show, and we'll come on back in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
Buffalo, they need a spark. Buffalo needs something quickly. When the trade deadline is quickly approaching, Buffalo needs to do something. And Buffalo needs to do something on the offensive side of the ball. I don't care what the reports say. I don't care what the speculation says. If Buffalo sits on their hands and if Brenden Bean doesn't do anything from now until the trade deadline, I don't even know if the Bills will make the playoffs.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
You can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL Live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Lugnut in Oregon tweets to me, how about the Bengals at least calling about Derrick Henry? Love Joe Mixon, but the Bengals pass first, and Henry would demand defenses to not sell out for the pass. I opened up the show discussing the possibility of Derrick Henry getting traded to 3 teams, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, the Bengals should come calling too. And you saw it in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, where late in the game, they kind of fell out of love with Joe Mixon, where they were running Samaje Perine late, and I thought that was a bad and questionable decision. Now, Mixon is still there, but he basically had to cut his salary in half to just stay with the team. He's still a productive back, but remember, Derrick Henry, you could use him as a rental. Like, some teams may look at him and say, oh, we want to give him a new contract. We'll give up significant capital to go get him. Others may say, let's just play out this contract and use him as a rental. The Bengals could be one of those teams who are in a win-now window. And you could then, you already paid Joe Burrow, you got to pay Jamar Chase. We'll see if a deal with T. Higgins gets done. But you could bring in Henry for this year to add some more ammunition to this team and more of a force to this team at the running back position and create depth at that position. And that could help you later in the year, and it can make you a better football team. So I don't think Cincinnati is likely, but I don't think it hurts to inquire about the services, because how many times do we see really damn good football teams and we always say, oh, they get a deal done and they didn't have to give up a ton and they didn't need to make the move, but they end up making the move, and we all sit here on the radio and go, up, the rich get richer. That's why a team like that has been so successful the last 2-3 seasons. And also, it's kind of crazy how quickly we have now flopped back into the Cincinnati Bengals, where last year we were cognizant, right? They start off the year 0-2. Oh, everyone's panicking. Oh, it was a one-year wonder. They get to the Super Bowl. And then the next thing you know, they're in the AFC title game, and they almost won the AFC title game. This time, Kansas City, though, got the best of Cincinnati when Mike Hilton started to run his mouth after the Bills game and poke the bear of Patrick Mahomes, which is not wise to do with the nonsense with the Burrowhead comments. But this year, it felt different when they started off 0-2 and then eventually 1-3. And remember, they got smacked by a bad team in Tennessee 27-3 because Joe Burrow was hurt. Then they're back and forth with the Cardinals. Jamar Chase pops off. They distance themselves from Arizona. They win the game by 14. And last week, or 2 weeks ago, because they had a bye, it was sloppy up against Seattle. Their offense played well in the first half, but in the second half, they were non-existent. And we played audio on this show of Joe Burrow speaking, and it almost sounded as if the Cincinnati Bengals lost that game with how dreadful and how sloppy and how slow they were offensively in the second half. But Lou Anarumo, who should be a head coach, the defensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals, he did a masterful job up against a very talented offense in the Seattle Seahawks. And now they're 3-3. And we always talk about timing in the NFL. And the timing for the Cincinnati Bengals right now to be going up against the 49ers is really good. Because Debo's hurt. Trent Williams is hurt. You know McCaffrey's playing banged up. And now, even though I view Brock Purdy more of a system quarterback than a franchise quarterback, I would much rather have Brock Purdy on the field than Sam Darnold. And Brock Purdy yesterday entered concussion protocol. And with how already late into the week we are, it's unlikely and it's not expected that Brock Purdy's going to be able to go up against the Cincinnati Bengals. So, yeah, the Bengals have to go to Santa Clara this week. You have to go into a tough environment. The 49ers, even if they're banged up and decimated with injuries, are still good enough to beat anybody. And, yes, you could be concerned that they're on a 2-game losing streak. You never want to play a team like the 49ers when they've lost 1 game, let alone 2 games in back-to-back weeks. But you get them at a good time. And the Bengals it's not style points. They just have to walk out with the victory. But to take it a step further, I kind of hope that Sam Darnold falls flat on his face this weekend, because I found it to be very insufferable when this offseason everyone was hyping up Sam Darnold. And I watched Sam Darnold when he was the quarterback of the Jets. And I know you could use the excuses of, oh, well, he had the incompetent Adam Gase. And, oh, the Jets always ruin quarterbacks. Fair ball game. But Sam Darnold barely provided any moments, like not even 5 tangible moments that suggested while he was the quarterback of the Jets that he could be a franchise QB in this league. Then he goes to Carolina, and his quick time in Carolina, he was like leading the league in rushing touchdowns, but he barely did anything through the air, and then he got hurt. And then he got beat out by Baker Mayfield for the starting job the next season. And now, just because all of a sudden Kyle Shanahan is the quarterback whisperer, and he gets Sam Darnold, now everyone needs to believe back in Sam Darnold? That's crazy. This isn't Sam Darnold right out of USC when he was thought to be this really good quarterback. We've now seen a few years of Sam Darnold, and all signs indicate he just doesn't have it. Now, yes, the environment's great when you have the 49ers offensive line, when you have the weapons that they have, but I don't want to see Sam Darnold do well this weekend, because then it's going to go all back into, oh, well, the 49ers don't value the quarterback position. And even though people think I hate the 49ers, I don't think that's good if it gets back into the brain of Kyle Shanahan in the way that he's kind of approached this the last few years, that it's more of my system than it actually is the need to find a good quarterback, and I could win with any quarterback. Because the 49ers have won, but not the way that we really value winning in terms of hoisting that Lombardi trophy. They've been to a Super Bowl. They've been to a bunch of NFC championship games. But I've said this, they need to find someone they consistently believe in at the quarterback position. And if Darnold plays well, yes, Purdy, when healthy, will be the guy, but that will be back in the mind of Kyle Shanahan whenever Purdy has a hiccup. Oh, maybe I should go to Sam Darnold. And just because if Sam Darnold plays 1 game, I don't think that's the authentic version of Sam Darnold. And as you've seen with most quarterbacks in San Francisco, they have a shelf life and they can only play so well for so long. And eventually, as good as the system is, you still need someone to step up and deliver those throws in the big game, which Jimmy G couldn't do, and we'll see if Brock Purdy will be able to do so. And that's why I kind of threw out yesterday already with people saying, oh, now Darnold's going to probably be getting the start, and Brock Purdy looking human the last 2 weeks. We know who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. It's Kirk Cousins. And you know, even when after getting people into San Francisco, because of the relationship Kyle Shanahan has with Kirk Cousins, he's always been thinking of Kirk Cousins, and he's always been that guy who's on the date with, a pretty good-looking girl, and he's in a good situation, but he has his eyes wandering in a different direction, and they have wandered at times towards one Kirk Cousins. On the flip side of that, let me just quickly get to the Miami Dolphins, who stock has fallen a little bit on the Miami Dolphins because in their 2 biggest games of the season, they did not show up against the Buffalo Bills. And also last week, they did not have a good showing up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, the Patriots play the Dolphins this week in Florida. And I don't think the Patriots are going to win the game. But the Dolphins are banged up with Jalen Waddle last week, Raheem Mostert's not practicing. And now Tyreek Hill, his status is uncertain for the game. This is a big week, and this is a big moment for Tua Tagovailoa. Because last week when I was in our Miami studios at our Odyssey headquarters in Miami, I sat there and I said, I think it's more likely if the Dolphins are going to have an MVP member this year, that it's going to be Tyreek Hill than Tua Tagovailoa. Well, the way that Tua can get the conversation to sway into his favor is if Tyreek Hill doesn't play this week, and just because Tyreek Hill's not practicing doesn't mean he's not going to play. That dude doesn't need to practice. We all know, even if he's not at 100%, he's still faster than most dudes in the NFL, but you could look at the opponent, and I know there's still the aura of Bill Belichick, but let's be real. This Patriot team, if you watch them, is no good, but they did beat the Buffalo Bills last week, and I think that speaks more to the problems of the Buffalo Bills than the future success of the New England Patriots. But Tua, up against a team he's never lost in his career to in the New England Patriots, if he goes and throws 4 touchdowns, it's going to be very tough for anyone to say, oh, it's more just a situation that Tua is in rather than him actually being a good quarterback. Because if you win a game without Tyreek Hill, that is impressive. So I think there's 2 statements to be made this week. Depending on how Sam Darnold plays, it could factor into more Brock Purdy as a system quarterback if Sam Darnold plays well. But if Sam Darnold falls flat on his face, then maybe people start to look at Brock and go, oh, he's a little bit better than what the system is in San Francisco. And on the other side, if Tyreek Hill does not play for the Miami Dolphins, this could be a big week for Tua Tagovailoa to make an MVP type of statement up against a pretty pathetic football team these days in the New England Patriots. All righty, we'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we do come on back, John U. Bacon has had unprecedented access before to the Michigan program and Jim Harbaugh. He has written a book about the Michigan football program. He's going to join us on the other side to talk about all the latest in the big-time NCAA potential sign-stealing cheating scandal with the Michigan Wolverines. So John U. Bacon will join the Zach Gelb Show next. Now I'm craving some bacon just hearing that last name of John U. Bacon. Let's get to a man that knows how to eat some good bacon, especially when he dines at Peter Luger, who has just phenomenal big bacon. Here is the Ack Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the Bills are trying to prove their title window is not closing, but their record says otherwise. They host the Buccaneers to open Week 8, and Buffalo is 4-3 with injuries mounting. Head coach Sean McDermott said they've relied too much on Josh Allen, that it needs to be a more collective effort.
No, I just think overall, I mean, Josh can, all of us, right? We all have to do a better job, myself included, and it's putting the players in position. Then when in position, the players have to make the plays.
Tampa Bay has dropped back-to-back games, but their defense has been stout, among the league leaders in takeaways, fewest touchdowns allowed, and average points allowed. A pair of games on the NBA schedule. The Bucks host the Sixers as Damian Lillard plays his first game for the Bucks after 11 years in Portland. After a win on opening night, the Suns take on the Lakers in Indiana. Coming off a season-opening win has given head coach Rick Carlisle a multi-year extension. Xavier has also given Sean Miller an extension through 2029 after winning 27 games last year in his first game back at the school. And Shane Pinto became the first NHL player to be suspended for gambling. The free agent forward gets 41 games. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, Perloff, at home, in your car, and, of course, on your phone and tablet.
Maggie, you can find us on your local affiliate, Sirius XM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Another day and, well, another conversation about this latest Michigan sign stealing scandals. We try to gather more information. I figured we'd talk to our pal, John U. Bacon, who is a New York Times bestselling author. And he had unprecedented access a few years ago to the Michigan program in a book that he had called Overtime, Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines at the Crossroads of College Football. And John is kind enough to jump on board for a few minutes with us. John, I know this is a pretty open question right out of the gate, and I appreciate you joining us. But after having some time to listen a little bit and read some of the things that are out there since last week, just how do you react to all these allegations against Michigan?
Well, it's drip, 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 isn't it? Every day it's a new story, and I haven't seen one that is good for Michigan yet. So that is obviously a problem on the PR front, at the very least. The PR battle has basically already been lost, I think, no matter what else happens next. What happens next in terms of the NCAA remains unknown, of course, for a lot of reasons. One, they've not yet, I don't think, given Michigan the notice of allegations, which gives Michigan 90 days to respond. Michigan has so far seems to have observed the gag order, so they've not responded to anything yet. So we're not sure what they're going to have to say in response. But obviously the evidence keeps on piling up against Connor Stallion, the Michigan analyst slash scout, I guess. So that is piling up, and obviously the outcome is unclear now. One of the reasons why the outcome is unclear is this rule is not well known and has rarely been used. Near as we can figure, 2016, a Baylor assistant coach received a half-game suspension for breaking it, and I don't know anyone else who has been accused of breaking it. So we're in a bit of uncharted territory here.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and I think the public reaction has been pretty severe. I think there's a lot of people that cover college football that have been digging, but it is interesting to me. Like, I work with Tiki Barber. He works right down the hall. I go, do you think this is that big of a deal? He goes, no. I turn on ESPN. I hear Jeff Saturday. He's like, everyone's got to calm down. People that have played football, they kind of roll their eyes at this and go, well, Michigan's not the only team that has done it. Now, if they broke a rule, there has to be some punishment. But I don't think, John U. Bacon, this means we got to throw the book at Michigan and end their season right now.
Well, that is not going to happen almost no matter what, because the NCAA works a whole lot more slowly than that, and we all know that, of course. So I think 6 years in the Kansas basketball case, I don't think it's going to take 6 years. This one strikes me as a lot simpler than that, of course. But the reaction is a bit of a Rorschach test. Michigan fans, of course, think that it's jaywalking, and their many enemies, of course, think they should be shot without trial. So probably somewhere in the middle is what's going to happen, is my guess. Even 2 years ago, the NCAA almost got rid of the rule in their own writing, saying it's a minimal competitive advantage. However, like you said, it's still a rule. It's Rule 11.6.1. What's also unclear is what the penalties are. Most of the rules have attached to them, like laws, a sentencing guideline. There's none of that here. So it's wide open, man. It truly is wide open right now.
So, John U. Bacon here with us. At first, just naturally, I was like, Ryan Day probably ratted out Michigan to the NCAA because his fans are starting to turn on him. But I saw that you did an interview, and you were talking about Jim Stapleton. Can you just give us a little further intel there on why you think it is Jim Stapleton, I guess, who was the guy that kind of informed the NCAA about this?
I don't know if it's Jim Stapleton who informed the NCAA about this. I was referring to media leaks. So there was that. Who informed them in the first place? I recall maybe it's Pete Thamel's article early on, 2 Big Ten coaches he had talked to about this. Doesn't mean they're the informants either. So that's not clear.
So okay, if it's about leaking the information then with Jim Stapleton, why would he do that? Like, right, from what I read, he's a Michigan alum. He's on the NCAA infractions committee. And isn't he a minority owner with the Vikings? Does he just not like Harbaugh?
He does not like Harbaugh, but that doesn't necessarily make you the leaker, obviously. So why I can't answer.
Gotcha. All righty. John Bacon here with us. What do you think a potential punishment could be? I just saw a report from Pete Thamel, who's been all over this. The NCAA enforcement staff has been at the University of Michigan this week to look into the sign stealing probe. Their arrival on campus just a week after the investigation formally launched is an indication of the priority the case has taken. I know that you have to look way down the road here, but what do you think a potential punishment could look like?
Again, it's wide open. A month ago, I would have guessed maybe a slap on the wrist. But obviously the tension that it's getting and the more involved Michigan appears to be, the more serious the punishment's probably going to be. The second factor, again, is not just what the NCAA does with Michigan, but also how Harbaugh and Michigan decide to respond and his contract and all the rest. So there's a lot at stake here. And the outcome is truly on almost every front unknown. This is, like I said, uncharted territory. So it's hard to know, it's hard to even guess what the outcome might be in this case.
When you get to his contract, because this has been right on the record, and you know this, John Bacon, there's been reports out there, and you've had stuff on it too, that it looked like they were inching close to getting a contract extension done. Now is just everything on pause, and it's kind of a wait and see if they're going to take care of Jim Harbaugh, pending on what happens here with the investigation.
Well, 2 weeks ago, 2 higher-ups at Michigan who are negotiating the contract or part of that process told me that they were going to have a new contract for Harbaugh by the end of the month. That's October. And that would make him the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. Now, what this process does to that, if that promise still holds or not, is not at all clear. No one said either way at Michigan or elsewhere. So who knows is the answer there. How about that, Zach, for yet another edifying answer from me? There you go.
Well, if I'm Michigan, I would still try to get this deal done because it's you're backing your guy when everyone's trying to tear your guy down. I would just say, bleep it. We'll deal with what the consequences are and really show him we want you to be our coach moving forward and forget about the NFL. That's how Michigan should handle this.
It depends on whom you listen to, obviously. So others say, NFL and so on. So who knows? And I really do not know what Michigan's going to do in this case. But I know that's open-ended. I know the promise was made 2 weeks ago, but I don't know where that promise stands now. So that is now up in the air.
Yeah, and I don't know how severe the punishment is going to be. There's going to be some sort of punitive action. It wouldn't shock me, and I've been saying this all year, when you go back to the other recruiting violations, that this drives Harbaugh out of college football, even though he clearly loves Michigan. It's his school. If you had to kind of handicap this right now, put a percentage on it, that he goes back to the NFL, how likely do you think that is with now another thing thrown his way?
Great question. Certainly, I would say 2 weeks ago, the odds of him going to the NFL were very slim. And now I'd say the odds are much better. It doesn't mean I got it on the over versus the under. But again, so many unknowns here. We have no idea how long the NCAA is going to take, what the response is going to be, what the punishment might be as well. Harbaugh's already, Ward Manuel and Harbaugh together did 3 games this fall, a 3-game voluntary suspension for the level 2 violations, and the question about did he lie about those or not. That was the open question with the NCAA. They had conceded the first 4 points. So that's where they are. If how they respond next that will drive what happens next with Harbaugh in the NFL. But certainly I would say the odds of him going to the NFL are much higher today than they would have been 2 weeks ago.
Have you talked to Jim, just wondering, since all this stuff has kind of hit the fan?
No, I've not.
All right, well, let me ask you this, just with your connections then. Last thing I'll ask you, John Bacon, is there anything else that you want to add? Because I know you get a lot of people that tell you a lot of things about the Michigan program. Is there anything else you sort of want to add here when you wrap up a thought or two about everything that's transpired here?
Well, I often go back to the great William Goldman quote. He's the guy who wrote The Princess Bride and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Nobody knows anything. And right now, there's some of that going on. There's also the question of the private investigative group that apparently found this stuff. That's an open question also. That surprised me. I think the Washington Post reported that.
Yeah.
So that's also surprising, and I've never seen that one before either. So who knows what's going on there?
Yeah, maybe it was just Ryan Day. Well, he does have a mustache and a beard already, so maybe he was shaven for a little bit and then was submitting things to the NCAA, all kidding aside. John U. Bacon, always great to connect with you. Thanks so much. If you hear anything, let us know.
You got it. Thanks, Zach.
There he is, John U. Bacon, award-winning author, joining us right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. You know, I will say there's been a lot of times in the NCAA where there's a lot of stories that involve things off the field or away from the court, and they're like really nasty and they're really serious. Like, what makes this one interesting is you have a Marine who's associated with the football program, who loves the football program. I'm not saying he's operating on his own, like Harbaugh had to know to some capacity about this, but he's basically become the whiz kid here on sign stealing, allegedly. And that's what I think gives legs to this story is, like, you look at the Jerry Sandusky-Paterno situation, like, those details were horrifying. They were heinous. They were horrific. They were tough to stomach. They were, like, you just hear the things that were going on, and you're not human if you don't, like, throw up from that. When you had the Urban Meyer, Zach Smith situation, we were talking about domestic abuse allegations with Zach Smith. And, like, those are serious things. Like, in the grand scheme of things, I know we take football seriously, but it's not the end of the world here. But the whole story is intriguing, and what other information is going to be fascinating. And there's two camps, and there's no meet in between kind of middle ground here. It's either you want Michigan to get locked up, thrown away the key, you think this is the biggest advantage in the world, and this is the end of the world, or you're like, okay, they cheated, they did something wrong, they have to be punished, but you don't have to tear down the program. So more and more information is going to come out. I do agree with John, and I used this as a joke earlier in the week, and I had one college basketball coach actually reach out to me to say it was a spot-on analogy, where I said the NCAA moves as slowly as my mile time when I was 70 pounds heavier, and that's what's going to go on here. Like, just because the NCAA, I guess, is now on the campus, according to Pete Thamel, that doesn't mean they're going to swoop in and say, oh, Michigan, you're banned from postseason play. And the Big Ten would be dummies as well, with the team that has the best chance to win the NCAA championship this year and the college football playoff to then swoop in and go, yeah, we don't want you participating in the Big Ten championship. So I don't think anything's going to happen now. And then after this year, Jim Harbaugh has a decision to make, and it's, should I stay or should I go? But Michigan absolutely should get a deal done now with Harbaugh, even amidst of all this stuff, because you could really stand in the corner and show your support to Jim Harbaugh and make sure that he is going to stay forever, or as long as he continues to coach as the head coach of Michigan. So it seemed like what John said a few weeks ago looked like a long-term deal was going to get done. You could also say, what's the value of a contract now in the year of 2023? But with this new domino to fall, the status of Jim Harbaugh and his future at Michigan remains up in the air.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, we continue. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, hour number 2 of our radio program, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Welcome on in. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Brenden Rice is going to stop by. He is the son of the legendary Jerry Rice. And Brenden Rice is now in his second season as a wide receiver at USC after a previous stop as being a wide receiver at Colorado. So looking forward to talking a little Jerry Rice, USC, Caleb Williams, and Brenden Rice when the USC wide receiver joins us. Real quickly, before I get into my list of Super Bowl contenders and why the list is very slim right now, I am looking at our YouTube chat as I currently speak. And there's a man, Matt from Framingham, who said, Zach, I'm going to a place that you like to go to since I've listened to you throughout the years, Center Pizza today in Framingham. And Center Pizza is a delicious pizza and sandwich shop in Framingham, Massachusetts. And I said to him, as much as I like Center Pizza, when I'm in the Boston area, my favorite place to go get pizza is actually Santarpio's, which is delicious. And there was actually one time I went to Santarpio's with two of my uncles, and then my uncle's mother and my cousin, and the line was so long to get in, so we called in a pizza, and we ate the pizza in the parking lot. And I didn't know that Santarpio's maybe wasn't in the best part of Boston, but while we're devouring this pizza like it's a tailgate, and we're a bunch of pigs pretty much at a tailgate as we're just devouring like two pizzas on the hood of the car, we hear pop, pop. And then the next thing, the sirens. And at first, like I just thought they were fireworks. But then when you hear the sirens after that, the police officers were actually like zooming down the road, and they stopped and they saw us eating the pizza, and they go to us, where did you hear those pops from? And my uncle was like, from somewhere over there. Like, I don't think we were in close enough distance where we heard it, but I don't think we were in any immediate danger. So she's not my grandmother, but it's my uncle's mother on a different side of the family. She then could get very worried, right, as any kind of Jewish mother or Jewish grandmother would be. And she's like, what were those noises? Because she pretended not to hear those noises when they happened. But then when the officers come over, and my uncle was like, everybody in the car, they were just fireworks, don't worry. And we finished the sausage pizza and the pepperoni pizza that we had, did the 2-minute drill, Omaha, Omaha, and shoved all the pizza right down your throat. And then you ended up moving on, and we drove out of there. But not that I shared that story in the YouTube chat. Now I just shared that story to everyone listening. A very sensitive debate did pop up. And I think we're starting to learn each other a little bit more. Like, I've known Big Mike CBS for a long time. Some call him Moist Mike now. I've known Stu for a very long time as well. But it's different when you just know people and you're coworkers with people, and then you work on the same show with people. So this is a big test, guys, in the big three here from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on CBS Sports Radio, featuring Zach Gelb, Moist Mike, which Samter, every time I says that, just shakes his head and looks like a disappointed human being, and the always sweet Stuart Kovacs. Where do we lie on pineapple on a pizza? I will hold back on my analysis and my opinion, not to make you change your opinion one way or another and maybe suck up and get some brownie points, which I don't think you guys should do anyway. But I have heard a little bit of a debate in the YouTube chat about the guys that were referred to by the last show as the Weedos and the Purple Drinkers and their love for some pineapple on a pizza. Stu, where are you at pineapple on a pizza?
If it's like a brand pizza, like a Domino's or a Papa John's or something like that, I'm all for it. I think it's great on Domino's.
Really?
Yes, I think
so
pineapple,
a lesser
yes.
quality pizza, you need to enhance it a little bit more and put some pineapple on it, is what you said.
Yes, but if I'm getting a classic New York slice, I would not dare get pineapple on it. I would just get pepperoni or whatever special toppings they're known for, whatever. Usually pepperoni, though, or plain.
Now, I don't know Stu that well away from the studio. I just know worked Stu. But are you maybe indulging on something that could increase the appetite? Let's just say if you are ordering from one of the chain pizza places and then you're like, oh, I'll eat anything right now, so let's get crazy. Let's get crazy and put some pineapple on the pizza.
No, I do not mind having like a chain pizza every now and then. Okay. Again, I think it's different. I don't consider that like having like, if you say I'm getting pizza, I think of pizza. Or if you say
pizza.
chain pizza.
What are you, Little Caesars now?
Pizza. If it's chain, it's different. It has like a different feel to it. But I'm down for either one. But I think regular pizza's better.
So the verdict from Stu is, if it's from chain pizza, you throw the pineapple on it. If it's a traditional New York slice, your local pizza shop, you would not be caught dead at the register saying, hey, cut up some pineapples and throw some pineapples on that slice of Zop.
Yeah, I'm not going to John's here in New York and asking for pineapple, that's for sure.
Okay. Samter, pineapple on a pizza. What's the verdict?
There's only two ways to eat a pizza. Plain and Hawaiian style. That's it. Pineapple and ham on a pizza. I don't care if it's Domino's or if it's New York style. It's the best way to go. Now, my favorite pizza place, I go all plain, just plain cheese.
Well done. You have to order a pizza pie well done. Very important.
I do like it well done, but the place I go to, Joe's, oftentimes makes it pretty well done to begin with, or at least close.
Yeah.
But I always tell them well done. But if I'm not getting Joe's plain pizza, it's always Hawaiian. My favorite thin crust pizza place around here, I get prosciutto di Parma, and I get a little bit of pineapple on it.
It's a good accent, by the way,
Sam. It's absolutely amazing. Anybody who doesn't like pineapple on pizza, they're being trolls for the sake of being trolls. They're being traditionalists because they think pizza is a certain thing that has to have a certain... If you try it, you're going to love it. If you like pineapple, if you like fruit, and you like pizza, you're going to love pineapple on pizza.
Do you know of a place in the city that is in delivery distance from our studio here at 345 Hudson Street that makes a good pineapple pizza and whatever crap that you put on the pizza?
Well, so the place that I usually go to, there's a thin crust place, and there's like 10 of them, and they have different names throughout the city. And it's amazing brick oven thin crust pizza, and I'll get it with the prosciutto di Parma, and I'll get it with the pineapple. There's one that's like maybe 5 or 6 blocks away from here. I haven't been to that one, but they're all the same menu, just different names. So I'm assuming that they probably have it. It's not a normal New York slice with, you fold it up and it has the thick, fluffy bread. No, this is like thin crust.
Which I like.
Baked. Delicious. And I'm assuming if they have the same menu, they'll have it.
Okay, so I'm going to put this on Samter before I give you my opinion. I want to try... What did you say? Pineapple? Say it with the nice fancy accent.
Prosciutto di Parma.
Prosciutto di Parma.
Yeah. Now, normally I'll just go ham and pineapple, but this place that I go to, it's prosciutto di Parma.
You got to say that using your hands a little bit more.
Hey,
Prosciutto di Parma.
Hey.
All right, we'll kiss you on your left cheek, your right cheek. All righty. Get a free appetizer, something like that. I want to try that tomorrow because I am usually someone that's not a troll, but I've never really enjoyed pineapple on a pizza. But I will say...
Have you had it?
Yes, I've had it.
Okay, you've had it and you just don't like it that much.
No, I don't love it. But I will say you've done a good job selling up the pizza. Like Samter, I thought you... Like, I was about to just yell at both you guys, say you're the biggest idiots I've ever worked with. Shame on you. Spike, we need to find a new producer. We need to find a new board op. I was ready to just crush both of you. And Stu did an okay job, even though I was questioning some of those pizza chains. And I was wondering if Stu is maybe doing a little puff, puff, pass. But for Samter, I thought you really saved the sinking ship here. And I'm willing to try it again. I like plain pizza. Well done. I usually like the small pepperoni cups on the pizza, too. Very delicious. Like Prince Street Pizza here in the city, that square slice that used to always fatten us up here at CBS Sports Radio, and then someone left, and now we don't get the pizza anymore. But that was delicious. I love buffalo chicken on a pizza, but I don't just go into any pizza joint and ask for buffalo chicken. I'm very particular with the buffalo chicken. I can look at the buffalo chicken and know right just at the look if it's a good buffalo chicken slice or not. I will dabble a little bit with some meatball on a pizza. I could do some sausage on a pizza as well. And recently, at my local pizza joint in the city right by my apartment, they have improved their chicken bacon ranch slice. I'm not a big ranch guy, but their chicken bacon ranch slice is very good. So I think I hit all the potential toppings that I like to consume on a pizza. But I am willing to try this pineapple prosciutto di Parma pizza that Michael Samter is talking about. So maybe you will look at this. Maybe you are making me a different human being, only working together for 3-4 weeks, where if you said to me 4 weeks ago, try some pineapple on a pizza without saying the prosciutto di Parma, I would say, yeah, go take a lap and never talk to me again. I'm going to get a restraining order put out against you.
Anytime that I change anybody, it's not for the better. So I would run as fast as you can.
Okay. I'm a peacock. You got to let me fly. I'm going to try to fly with the pineapple prosciutto di Parma pizza. But no, rule of thumb, I'm usually not a pineapple on the pizza type of guy. All righty. Who are the true Super Bowl contenders in the NFL? Now, I'm very strict about this. Like, if I was a teacher, it would be very tough to get a perfect score or to be considered one of the better students in my class. If you've listened to me throughout the years, and even if you're new to my style of radio and the way that I think, I am very, very, very skeptical to say that teams are great. If I say your team is very good, that's a compliment. If I say your team is good, that's a compliment. But if I say your team is great, if I say your team is excellent, if I say your team is marvelous, that's how you know I really do believe in your team. And through the first 7 weeks of the season, with the ball about to be put up into the air tonight in Orchard Park, which I love going to Buffalo. I would love to be like Perloff, lose a bet and have to spend 2-3 days in Buffalo and go to Bar Bill and get a little beef on weck and also get, what are those wings? It's the butter BBQ Cajun wings, which are just like to die for. I think I got that right. If I'm there, I know how to order them. But the wings are some of the best wings I've ever had. Better than Anchor Bar, better than Duff's, like all the fine places in Buffalo. But Bar Bill's really where it's happening. You know, maybe take a stop at Ted's Hot Dog, too, and get myself a hot dog. Maybe go a little bocce pizza, too, see if they have any pineapple for people like Samter. But we have Week 8 starting tonight between the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Neither of those teams right now is Super Bowl contenders. The Bucs have been impressive, but now they've come back down to earth recently. I still don't think they're going to win that division, but it will either be them or it will be the Atlanta Falcons. I've leaned Atlanta before the start of the season, and I still lean Atlanta. But those two teams aren't Super Bowl contenders, and before the year, a lot of people would have said the Buffalo Bills are a Super Bowl contender. So right now, my three teams that are the Super Bowl contenders in the NFL. It's the Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl last year. We know their defense has played well this year. Their offense has not been as successful as in years past. But if the offense has been the quote-unquote problem, they'll find a way to figure it out because of 15-87 and Big Andy Reid eating those cheeseburgers in Kansas City. By the way, talking about food, Kansas City, go to Jack Stack's. Delicious, delicious, delicious barbecue. Stu knows it when he was there for the draft. So Kansas City, definitely Super Bowl contender. The team that was in the Super Bowl last year and had a 10-point lead at halftime, the Philadelphia Eagles, definitely a Super Bowl contender. The Eagles, whose quarterback, Jalen Hurts, is hurt to some capacity right now, but he is playing. They have not played their best brand of football. They're still 6-1, and even when the Eagles win, we're nitpicking to how they win. And then finally, even though they've had some injuries catch up to them the last few weeks, the San Francisco 49ers are a Super Bowl contender. After that, there's some really good teams. There are some teams that are looking like they could be a Super Bowl contender, but I just got to see more. The Baltimore Ravens are one of those teams that I was very close to putting them into the list and saying, okay, we'll take 4 teams, but that Steelers loss still stands out to me. And that's a game they should have won, and they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. But that Ravens team, as long as Lamar stays healthy, they could beat anybody in the NFL, and they showed that last week to the way that they dominated Detroit. The Dolphins and the Lions, I think, are a step below the Ravens, but they're in a team that could be a contender. They just got to show me more up against the elite opponents. The Lions really don't have an elite opponent the rest of the way. Like, their best remaining opponent is the Cowboys. The Dolphins in 2 weeks do play the Kansas City Chiefs. So an opportunity to show that, okay, the Dolphins up against the Bills, the Dolphins up against the Eagles, and their poor performances, they're better than that. And for the Lions, they'll win a lot of games, and it's just going to be, where do you fall with the Eagles and 49ers schedule picking up? Can you find a way to usurp them and actually get the number 1 seed? And then we have home field advantage for the Lions potentially, even after the massacre last week in Baltimore. And we know that's a fan base that's starving for success. because they have not won their division since 1993 and haven't won a playoff game since 1991. And then 2 more teams to monitor. I'm still going to monitor the Bills. I'm concerned what we've seen with the Bills. I think the Bills need to go trade for Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley before the trade deadline next week. And yes, I'm concerned about Tre'Davious White being out and Matt Milano being out. But the Buffalo Bills have been close the last few years. They are starting to fade, but they're in that monitor conversation. And then finally, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars, in week 2, they disappointed me because I thought they would beat Kansas City. And since then, they've now got back into my good graces, but I'm still a little skeptical because I look back at that game in week 2 up against Kansas City and I was like, man, that offense was a complete no-show. And then up against the Texans in back-to-back weeks, the offense was a no-show. Now, they've been hot as of late, and in their 4-game winning streak, their best win was the Bills. They beat the Falcons. They beat Indianapolis. They beat the Saints. But for the Jaguars, you have an opportunity, just like the Dolphins do, right? The Dolphins in a few weeks play Kansas City. Well, the Jaguars in 2 weeks, they play the San Francisco 49ers. They'll have the Bengals on the schedule and the Baltimore Ravens. So there's an opportunity for the Jaguars to compile some elite wins. So right now, in my strict standards, I only think there are 3 Super Bowl contenders. It's the Eagles and the 49ers in the NFC, and in the AFC, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. But there's some teams that are lurking in different capacities with the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Lions, and the Jaguars. And you know what? We'll learn a lot more about this team in the next 2 weeks. But the Bengals are not dead yet. Let's see how these next 2 weeks go. Up against the 49ers and then up against the Buffalo Bills. But the Bengals could assert themselves right back into the Super Bowl contending conversation as well. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's take a break. We'll come on back. USC wide receiver Brenden Rice is going to join us. We'll hear a little bit more about his story. He is the son of the legendary Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time. And how does USC bounce back after back-to-back losses to Notre Dame and Utah? Brenden Rice next. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio, where pineapple pizza with the little prosciutto di Parma is an interesting thing.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining.
We continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Saw a great campaign the other day on behalf of Breathe Right, and it was Jerry Rice, the GOAT, having a little trivia competition with his son, who's a star wide receiver at USC, in Brenden Rice. And Brenden, you didn't do that bad of a job knowing about your old man. Appreciate the time. Thanks for it, and how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Zachary.
Well, let me start you off with this. Like, everyone knows you're the son of Jerry Rice. You probably get tired just hearing questions about your dad. But when did you realize growing up that, man, my dad's a pretty big deal and he's the greatest wide receiver, one of the greatest football players of all time?
Just about 8 years old when I was going around class, hey, my dad's Jerry Rice, thinking oh, this is crazy. And just really looking up to some of the accolades and the stuff that he's done. He's a natural born leader and he leads by example. It's always something that I've always wanted to incorporate in my game and go ahead and develop the attributes within my game and move forward.
Did you feel pressure at a young age to try to go play football?
There's always going to be pressure, and a kid like that is always going to feel the pressure. But growing up, I felt as though hey, if you go ahead and put the work ethic forward, that the pressure is going to lay off and you're going to look at it as a blessing, because a lot of people don't have that type of pressure, don't have that dad that's a Hall of Famer. So you got to take it as a blessing.
How'd you fall in love with the game so it could become a blessing for you?
I fell in love with the game at such an early age. I played tackle football before I ever played flag football. So just seeing how my whole family was really into the game of football, even my sister played it, and my sister was actually a football player than all of us. I would have to say she was a lot more dominant, and used to make the little boys cry. So football was just go ahead.
Yes, so you probably had to draw some inspiration from your sister, right? She kind of set the way.
Oh yeah, most definitely she set the way for all of us.
That's awesome. Brenden Rice here with us. How would you describe your game? Like, we've seen you play a little bit at Colorado. The last 2 years, you got a whole lot more attention, especially this year at USC. But if someone's never seen Brenden Rice play, your game is what?
I'm a finesse type of player that goes ahead and likes to dominate the opponent in each way possible. I like to take people's wills away, play in and play out. So like every play, you're gonna get something new from me, and I feel as though that you're gonna have to be ready for that. You're gonna have to come prepared because all throughout the week, I'm thinking about different ways that I can incorporate things into my game that's gonna really go ahead and put me in the best pedestal to go ahead and put my best foot forward as well.
So something I want to ask you here, Brenden Rice, because my dad was involved in radio back in the day. He produced a very famous talk show, Mike and the Mad Dog. And like when you get into the same business as your old guy, people go, oh, that's so-and-so's son at first. And then you try to leave your own mark and kind of create your own path. So I'm just wondering, let's say in 20 years from now, we're talking, what do you want people to say about Brenden Rice? And what do you want your own mark on the game to really be?
I want my own mark on the game to be with the headline, just go ahead and say, yeah, Jerry Rice was great, but Brenden Rice went ahead and paved his own way, and he had to go ahead and put in the natural born work ethic to get to where he's at today. And hopefully in 20 years, you can say that, hey, Jerry Rice and Brenden Rice were just as good or even better.
That would be unbelievable if that was the case. Brenden Rice here with us. You see right now in the game of football, and right, we've seen guys, fathers have great careers, and then sons try to follow in their footsteps. But it's pretty neat with what you're doing right now. Over at Stanford, you got E.J. Smith, the son of Emmitt Smith, and then we know Colorado with Shador and Shiloh Sanders and who their father is, Coach Prime. And then, of course, at Ohio State, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., and we all know how great his father was. Do you kind of follow those stories? I don't know if you have relationships with those guys just because of, you know, playing college football and who their dads are, but how much of a keen eye do you have on those guys' career?
I think it's huge, just like all these guys going ahead and following in their dad's footsteps and just going ahead. And some of them, like, you know, it doesn't always work out, stuff like that. But I feel as though my situation was just a little bit different because I was grown up into something that I wanted to go ahead and put my best foot forward, and I wanted to have to develop my own capabilities because my dad was such a hard worker and is such a man of honor, and he feels as though that, hey, if you're not going to work for it, you're not going to get it. So just having that humble and that hardworking dad makes you go ahead and transfers on to your child that everything out in this world is not going to be given. You got to go earn it. You got to go take it.
And I know from like my experiences, like my dad was tough on me when I was first trying to get into the business. And then eventually he was like, yeah, you're pretty good at this. Do you remember a moment when your dad said, yeah, son, you got a pretty bright future ahead of you. You're a pretty damn good wide receiver.
My dad was very critical. I mean, within my first 3 years, I would have to say my freshman year of college, he kind of saw some signs, but I feel like this year it's really taken off and he's proud of like what he's seen come into transition and all the hard work is starting to pay off. And I'm really starting to enjoy the fruits of the labor.
We're talking to Brenden Rice right now. We'll talk about Breathe Right in just a second. I know the last 2 weeks for USC, it hasn't gone your way up against Notre Dame and then a tough loss to Utah. Just how do you kind of look back at what the journey has been like the last 2 weeks?
Day in and day out, you're going to have to put your best foot forward and going to have to strive for greatness. You're going to have to win the game on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, even at the Friday walkthrough. And then going into the game, you have to make sure that you go ahead and take what you did on practice each of those days and push it into the game because honestly, a lot of stuff that you go through within practice, if you have those mistakes in practice, you're going to have those mistakes in the game. So just going ahead and bouncing back off of that, sometimes teams fall down, but people don't remember the fall downs. People remember how you respond and how you get up.
So what's the vibe been like with that being said around the team this week after 2 bad losses for you guys? Just do you sense a different level of hunger from your teammates?
Well, just getting back that sense of hunger is what we truly need. And we had that sense of hunger in the beginning of the season. Now we need to go ahead and reestablish that and push each day in and day out and go at each other and make each other better, because on Saturdays it's going to show up. I feel as though that it's really becoming a transition, and people are going to be reminded what USC is really all about.
We all know who your quarterback is. We've seen him a lot. We know he's going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. He won the Heisman Trophy last year. He's an incredible football player, but you have a different perspective than I do watching from my couch or maybe seeing him in New York when he won the Heisman. You tell me who your quarterback, Caleb Williams, is.
Caleb Williams is a natural born leader. Each day in and day out, you're going to get the same thing out of him. He's going to go ahead and push on you and harp on you, especially as a wide receiver. We got to be on point all the time because he's the one throwing us the ball. So just making sure that you're going ahead and continue to improve your game is going to help build that trust day in and day out. And he's going to be able to depend on you when he goes into that scramble mode, when he goes into those big-time situations, when he wants to just go ahead and get it to a specific person.
What does your dad, by the way, say about Caleb Williams? I'm just wondering.
My dad says a lot of things. Honestly, if anything he says that's most apparent all the time, it would be gifted.
Gotcha. I want to read you a tweet. I'm sure you saw this. It's from Emmanuel Acho, who after you guys lost to Utah said, with the national championship hopes gone, Caleb Williams should consider sitting out the rest of the season. The Heisman is a long shot. College football playoffs are even less likely, and he won't play in the bowl game. The risk of playing far outweighs the reward. Business decision. When you hear that from Emmanuel Acho, and he's advocating for your quarterback to sit out for the rest of the season, how do you kind of react to it?
I mean, you kind of got to chuckle because that's not who Caleb is. Caleb's going to go ahead and fight with his teammates each and every day. If you think he was really going to sit out, you lost your mind. I promise you lost your mind. This guy is a competitor. He's a guy that's going to go out there and try to show up your defense each day in and day out. And if you think that Heisman is out, guys, I promise you, he still has the best stats in the nation. He can still go on to beat Washington and Oregon. If you guys want to go ahead and say college football playoffs are up, okay, go ahead. Like, there's a lot of teams, there's a lot of football left. We'll see you guys in December.
Love that answer. Before we let you run, Brenden Rice, tell me about the campaign that you're doing today on behalf of Breathe Right.
I mean, just Breathe Right, going ahead and incorporate it into my lifestyle. It's being passed down from generation to generation, and it goes back to the lines of legacy. So just as that legacy goes ahead and gets passed down, I'm able to see some of the stuff that my dad used to do with the Air Jerry campaign and how he had the nasal strips. And just going ahead and being able to recreate that was kind of nostalgic. So just going ahead and incorporating that into my lifestyle and going ahead and then seeing how the nasal can affect my game after those long travel days, it helps me clear my sinuses and allows me to breathe better for those long nights before the game day preparation. And I feel like the legacy is really being passed down, and I'm thankful for that.
Well, I love this conversation. Really do appreciate the time today, and good luck on the rest of your journey, Brenden Rice.
Thank you.
There he is, Brenden Rice, joining us on CBS Sports Radio. We will come on back with the news brief and update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. But first up, with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Week 8 begins with a pair of struggling teams desperate for a win. The Bills host the Buccaneers, and both have had a rough time through the first half of the year. Buffalo has battled injury and is coming off its third loss on Sunday. It's a short week, but Josh Allen said it's an opportunity to turn things around.
It's another opportunity, and it's closer than Sunday. Gives us a chance to do what we love, and that's to play this game. And, our goal is to play it at a high level, and, we're very aware that we haven't played up to our standard and our potential the last couple weeks, and we're looking to fix that.
The Bucs have dropped back-to-back games in 3 of the last 4. Tyreek Hill will play Sunday. The Dolphins receiver said he's fine after missing practice yesterday. A pair of games in the NBA tonight. Damian Lillard makes his Bucks debut when they host the Sixers, who will have a disgruntled James Harden. The Suns look to build on their opening night win when they meet the Lakers. The Pacers have given head coach Rick Carlisle a multi-year extension. Their win last night leaves him 3 shy of 900 for his career, and Xavier has given Sean Miller an extension through 2029. The Musketeers are coming off a 27-win season a year ago. Number Jackal.
Everywhere Perloff, at home, in your car, and of course on your phone and tablet.
Maggie, you can find us on your local affiliate, Sirius XM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancial.com. Let's start off with Tua Tagovailoa. We talked about this the other day, that the Dolphins were announced to be the in-season Hard Knocks team. And Tua Tagovailoa is channeling his inner Robert Saleh, and he's not happy with the midseason Hard Knocks.
I'm just not a big attention guy. I understand it comes with the territory. I don't know, it's just different for me. I like to keep things private. I know having conversations with some guys in the locker room that, for them it's going to be tough as well. So we're all going to work through this together.
What are you really working through together? And the Jets are so fraudulent, too. They were all bitching and complaining about Hard Knocks, and then the NFL forced it down their throat, and then the Jets embraced Hard Knocks. And here's the thing. Hugh Jackson explained this to me when the whole Todd Haley scene happened. And I said to him, Hugh, that wasn't a good look in Hard Knocks when you're basically telling Todd Haley you're the head coach of the team, and when you're in this decision and you're in this chair, you have to make decisions that you may not be able to understand as the offensive coordinator. And Hugh Jackson explained to me, well, you got to remember, I control what goes out in Hard Knocks. And maybe I was trying to send a little message there, because what you guys saw on camera for the first time wasn't the first time that was actually going on behind the scenes. It was a conversation about maybe giving guys days off or something like that, and Todd Haley maybe wanted to push him a little extra more. And it was a conversation that occurred for the fourth or fifth time, but we were finally seeing it for the first time. So the teams control what goes out, and therefore I don't think the Dolphins are going to try to throw their own team under the bus outside of Tua dealing with maybe a potential concussion, and they're not going to show that on Hard Knocks anyway outside of him just getting hurt. I can see why maybe he'll be skeptical there, but once again, the team dictates everything they put out. So I don't see what the big deal is, and I don't see what any player would really be annoyed by this. And the Dolphins have a bunch of personalities anyway, where I don't actually believe that behind the scenes people are actually worried about this inside the Dolphins locker room, but it kind of fits Tua's personality or lack of it. And I'm a fan of Tua Tagovailoa, right? There's a reason why he doesn't want to do quarterback, which is fine. You don't have to. But this is a thing that the NFL is making your team do. And I don't know how it was agreed upon, but it did happen. And I don't think it's that big of a deal that you have to freak out about it. So we played you yesterday, Brady Quinn, saying that Deshaun Watson's baby like a trust fund baby, where he got all this money and then he was cleared to play. And then since he got his money, he didn't want to play. Deshaun Watson responded to those comments made by Brady Quinn earlier today.
I wouldn't ever want to play. I just worked my ass off for 2 years to get back to playing. So why wouldn't I want to play? This is what I've been doing since I was 6 years old. So why wouldn't I want to play? I see the same things. I see all the narratives, this, that, the third. I mean, all that stuff is just trying to cause controversy and promotion. Why would anybody listen to any of that stuff? All that is speculation. So if it ain't coming from me, then all that other bullshit.
Well, it's not as if Deshaun Watson is the most trustworthy human being to ever walk the planet, number one. So just because it's not coming from you doesn't mean that it's necessarily false. But when I saw he got cleared to return and he passed concussion protocol, I just thought that was Kevin Stefanski saying, you don't want to be on the wrong side of this, where just because some player is cleared to return doesn't mean he should be out there on the field. And that's what I thought it was. And then the reason why he's going to be out this week, it's not because of a lingering effect from a head injury. It's because of the shoulder injury. which he thought he recovered from, and he was back on the field this past Sunday from the shoulder injury. So did the shoulder get worse? Did you realize like you weren't ready? I don't know. Like something just doesn't add up to me there with the whole Deshaun Watson situation. I'm not saying he didn't want to play, but it's not as if like we could just rule that out of a possibility. Here is Frank Reich as you do get ready for a matchup this weekend between the Carolina Panthers and the Houston Texans. Frank Reich on this whole decision about going Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud, when many people thought that Frank Reich wanted C.J. Stroud, and then David Tepper, which I think did happen here, swooped in and said, no, we're drafting Bryce Young.
We got the guy we wanted to get. Couldn't be happier about that in every way. I'm happy for CJ. You know, he's had 6 good games, and I have no doubt he'll have many more good games. But I know this, when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks or any position, it's years, not weeks. You know, you can't put a label on a guy after 6 weeks or even a year.
So he's not wrong where you can't label someone, even though we rush to do so in the media world. But every time I hear Frank Reich speak, I almost think he is a hostage victim. Where a few weeks ago, it was like discussing David Tepper. Yeah, we have tough meetings, but I love how aggressive David Tepper is. He just doesn't sell it well. And a lot of people in NFL circles know that he preferred C.J. Stroud, and it was Tepper who wanted Bryce Young. But he has to get up there, and I know you could say, oh, it's just his normal tone in a press conference, blah, blah, blah. A lot of us know the truth on that one. Here is C.J. Stroud and the narrative that Bryce Young is struggling right now.
Personally, watching the film and watching every game of his, I don't think he in any way, aspect, or form, he's playing bad. That's what people think if you're not winning or like you have a turnover here and there. Bryce is playing some really good football. So I just don't think people watch in depth. Like if you're a quarterback, you know. Personally, I think he's playing good, and I think he'll continue to be great in his game because he has that swagger and mentality and that type of playing style. So
I believe in Bryce Young, and something I praised Bryce Young for last year was how he found a way to perform at a high level with not a lot of talent outside of Jahmyr Gibbs around him. But I don't know how to evaluate him this year because I don't think he's been put in the best position to succeed. The offensive line in Carolina stinks. You know, Adam Thielen's been good, but he's not a number 1 wide receiver. And Miles Sanders is an overrated running back. So it's tough to say, Bryce Young, go have success, go look good, when you really have nothing great around you. Let's go to Brian Daboll, the head football coach of the New York Giants. He was asked about the future of Saquon Barkley and him maybe being on the trade block.
Saquon said to me the other day after the game that you and Joe pulled him aside last week, kind of to reassure him that you sort of wanted here. Why did you feel the need to do that?
Well, someone told me that there was some rumors out there, so I walked up to him at walkthrough and said, yeah, that's not happening, so let's go walkthrough.
I think that's actually a mistake. Now, I don't think you have to trade him, but you got to listen. And maybe behind the scenes, right, Brian Daboll knows something different, and you just walk up to the player and you want to assure your player everything's going to be fine, but then what happens if you trade him? He's on the final year of a contract, right? He's a franchise tag player right now. And I don't know where the Giants are heading to. And they didn't get a deal done last offseason. So are things that have drastically changed this offseason? If someone offers you a second-round pick and this team is not ready to win consistently, you got to consider that if you're the Giants, and you should pull the trigger. Here is Rob Gronkowski ripping apart the Patriots for celebrating their second win of the season. Go get him, Gronk!
If you ask me, that celebration was pretty ridiculous, Chung. Whenever we celebrated just a little bit, we would get hounded. They just won one game, and they celebrated like more than we would when we won a Super Bowl. That was like one of the most absurd celebrations. Like, I'm like, wow, they won a game. They went that crazy. Like, they acting like they never been there before.
Well, a lot of these guys haven't been there before because they didn't have Tom Brady and they didn't have you winning Super Bowls on this team. And outside of like Matthew Slater with everyone that is running in and out of New England and like David Andrews now that still remain. I'm wondering there, is that like Gronk kind of like mocking the hot take culture a little bit and just giving a hot take of his own and trying to be the serious analyst? Or is that more so him just saying, yeah, we barely were allowed to celebrate in New England. I was like the king of fun and we were actually winning. I'm not going to rip someone for doing a gritty in the end zone, But for where the Patriots standard is, it was a little amateur hour by Gesicki and Mac Jones. Like, have fun, you win. But the standard for the Patriots, which has fallen significantly since TB12 has walked out of the building, I don't think they're going all crazy and bonkers and acting as if they won a Super Bowl the way that Gronk is saying it if TB12 was still in that building, because you wouldn't expect that game to actually be as close and need a last-second drive to get the job done. Here is Ben Roethlisberger on Footballin' with Ben Roethlisberger, his podcast on George Pickens' bad penalties for the Steelers.
You've got to put a stop to it now before it gets out of control. Yeah. Because that kid, I'm going to say it again, George Pickens is a absolute animal.
Yeah.
He's a game changer.
Freaking nature.
He's a difference maker. But you got to get under control before it gets out of control and you lose it forever. Because it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. And so I just don't want to see someone with that much talent lose it like that.
Let's go to Victor Wembanyama. Made his debut last night. Mavericks win, though, against the Spurs, 126-119. Wemby, as the cool kids call him, had 15 points in the game and was also able to pull in 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and had 2 steals and a block. But he did have 9 points in the fourth quarter. Was under a lot of foul trouble, and Victor Wembanyama talked about that foul trouble in his NBA debut.
I wasn't very aggressive. I couldn't be really in the first half. I could get a couple buckets by surprising, the opponents, because they're more focused in the moment on my teammates that are hot in the moment.
And let's go to Greg Popovich on Victor Wembanyama's debut.
I think it was great. One of the toughest things for a player is you get into foul trouble and you never get in a rhythm and you're in and out of the game and that sort of thing. So I thought his maturity showed even at a young age, where he came in with the last, 7 minutes and just played. We ran some stuff for him. He executed, where a lot of guys would have been totally out of it by then. I thought he had a wonderful outing, considering that.
And finally, before I give you my thoughts on Wemby, let's hear, courtesy of ESPN, Luka Doncic curse on live TV talking about the sensational game he thought Victor Wembanyama had.
He played amazing for the first game. I remember seeing a rookie that played that amazing for first game. I remember my first game, I was nervous. He didn't seem like being nervous, so he played mate. Sorry.
It's the first game. We're getting back into it.
I'm tired.
I always love the accidental curse. Like Hickey, when he was producing me a few years ago, just cursed when talking about Russell Westbrook. I've never laughed harder in my life. But going back to Victor Wembanyama, you see how incredible of a defender he is. Like late in the game last night, he didn't block Kyrie Irving, but just his long wingspan affected the shot and made Kyrie hesitate. He is very skinny, and I asked him about that at the draft, and he's like, well, maybe we should tell people to skinny up, not bulk up and add up weight. So it seems like he's resistant to adding more weight, but he probably should. And last night, you could cover up the minutes because of the foul trouble, but I do wonder, are they going to put him kind of on a minutes restriction this year? And then as a role as an offensive player, we know he can hit the 3, but how much of the post game are we going to see from Victor Wembanyama as well? I think for all things considered, it wasn't like a booming success last night, but it wasn't a disappointment. It was a fine performance, and he came alive in the fourth quarter and made it a game and showed up on the big stage when he had 9 points in the fourth quarter. So you could check off the box for Victor Wembanyama, and the biggest story of the NBA regular season will continue on, and we'll see how we're talking about him at the end of the year. And hopefully Perloff is driving around San Antonio, just getting people throwing things at him and making fun of him when Wemby wins the NBA Rookie of the Year. Coming on back, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. What a quick show this has been. Crazy, there's only 60 minutes remaining. But we appreciate you listening to us today across all of our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming on YouTube. Could always hit us up, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227, or give me a follow on Instagram and Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. So we were talking about real quickly the disdain that the Miami Dolphins have for being on the in-season Hard Knocks. And I see a few people in the YouTube chat have changed their name because of Michael Samter's hatred for the word moist. So they have changed their names to usually Jeff Howell. He is now Moister Howell inside the YouTube chat, which I find funny. So Moister Howell says if there was a CBS Sports Radio Hard Knocks, he would actually want to see Ryan Hickey, which Hickey could be intriguing if he has a few drinks in his system. Outside of that, he's pretty much a boring guy, but he is very quirky. And I guess if you want to see him freak out and kind of believe, Hickey's the kind of guy that always thinks the big fella on Christmas is always real. Like he could be 50 years old, and I think he'll still believe in the big fella on Christmas. And I'm saying it that way so I don't ruin anything for certain kids that may be listening to this show. And that's the way that Hickey treats his sports teams, which even knowing they're not real or they're not going to be great, he always talks them up to be great. And that's why every year he pumps up Penn State and gets disappointed, pumps up the Mets and then gets disappointed. And it's the same cycle each and every year, but it is fun to see him suffer and it is fun to see him frustrated. So, Stu, you've been around here a long time. If we had to look at all the on-air talent at CBS Sports Radio, whether that's a talk show host, a producer, who would you want to see an in-season Hard Knocks on featuring a CBS Sports Radio personality?
Wow, that's a really good question. I would say, how about D-Cell? I think D-Cell's an interesting guy to see what he's like. I know what D-Cell's like at work. I don't know what D-Cell's like outside of work.
I love D-Cell. D-Cell's one of my favorite people in this office building, and he does a tremendous job producing Writer Than You on CBS Sports Radio. But I don't know if D-Cell has a lot of fun. You know, I feel like he could scream like a maniac when Miami is going on, but D-Cell is a pretty mild manner human being. I want someone crazy. I want someone intriguing. I want someone polarizing. I love D-Cell, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of craziness away from the office. I think the D-Cell that you see here is pretty much a D-Cell that you see at home. All right, let's go to Big Mike, CBS. Moist Mike, as the cool kids call him, and he loves that so much. Who is someone that you would love to see Hard Knocks follow on CBS Sports Radio? You going to give me an answer here?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yes, Moist Mike.
I don't know who Moist Mike is, so I don't respond to that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Your feelings are hurt. Go get a moist towel and wipe those tears off, all right?
The obvious answer is Mr. Jim Rome, because he is the legend of legends.
The franchise.
He's the franchise. But I feel like Jim Rome at this point in his life is probably a little bit less interesting than he was maybe 10 years ago. And he was maybe, on his way up and not sitting atop the pedestal. I mean, he still lives an interesting life out in L.A. He's got the horses, and he does a lot of very cool things. But
I would like to go on a trip with him to Wisconsin, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, he's got kids at Wisconsin, so I'm sure there's a lot of fun, cool stuff. But, I'd like to see like a Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with Jim Rome. See, like a Cribs with Jim Rome.
Yeah.
But as far as like actually following around from a day-to-day lifestyle, sneaky, interesting guy I think is Bill Ryder.
That was my answer.
Right? Out in L.A., right? He does a lot of NBA stuff, travels for the NBA games, knows a lot of guys within the league, does his HQ stuff, and Bill's an interesting character, so I think Bill would be the guy.
So, two things. Let me first touch on Jim. I think if we did like a Hard Knocks on Tom Brady or Bill Belichick, like the legends, everyone would be interested in that. Jim Rome is the franchise. Jim Rome knows how to have a good time. Jim Rome is a great dude from every time I've met him. And just going on all those vacations and, seeing his sons play baseball or going to Wisconsin or going to Colorado where his son is at now, I do think would be really fun. And you just get a better understanding of what makes Jim and the incredible work ethic. So Jim is a great answer and definitely the most intriguing answer, but Bill may be the best answer. And I think we could all agree that we've all been out with Bill Ryder before. And Bill Ryder, when he gets a drink in his system, he has good conversations. He has good stories. He's a good time. And also, Bill, I sometimes get these vibes from him that, like, if you told me one CBS Sports Radio host got arrested and it was for like a crazy bar fight, which was just like a legendary night, I could see it being Bill Ryder. Bill is a star. Bill has good stories. Bill has a good personality. And Bill is just a fun time. So, yes, Hard Knocks with Bill Ryder would definitely be fun. I also think JR would be very intriguing as well. Outside of that, I think those would be my three answers. Ryder 1, Rome 2, and then JR 3. Because, like, we've worked with JR in Vegas at the draft or at the Super Bowls, and JR could always be, like, a little mysterious. Like, he comes to the show, and then once the show leaves, he leaves. Like, he wasn't hanging out with us at that burger joint that we went out to where the waiter was berating Hot Take Hickey for his, like, child order of that burger and asked him if he wanted a toy for the kiddie menu type of burger that he ordered.
Well, Hickey is basically a child. Here's a question I have for you, though.
Yeah.
What would a Hard Knocks of Zach Gelb look like?
Oh.
I heard Nobu Sushi.
Yeah, Nobu was good, man. It would be a big baller brand. That's what it would be like. I'd be like the LeVar Ball here of CBS Sports Radio. A lot of glitz and glamour, fun, big stops, big food, sporting events, and it would be very energetic. Perloff, too, is fascinating because Perloff is one of the more interesting human beings I've ever been around. Perloff could have a story for everything, and assuming Perloff is there, Sully is there, and then Sully takes it up to a different lifestyle. So.
I feel like a camera following Perloff around would just be a lot of weird foods and pickleball.
And missed basketball shots.
A lot of missed basketball shots and broken glasses.
All righty, let's hear from Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer lauds Kyle Whittingham. They used to work together for a long time. Urban Meyer makes it clear that he believes Kyle Whittingham is currently the best coach in college football. This is on Urban's Take with Tim May on 3 Sports.
I've said many times, Kyle Whittingham's one of the best coaches in college football. No, he's the best. He's the best coach in college football. What he is, he's culture and discipline. If you said, and he's tough as nails, man. I can go on and on about Kyle Whittingham and what he's done, but he's not one of the best. He's the best coach in college football.
Okay, I love Kyle Whittingham. I said before the start of the season, Kyle Whittingham easily is a top 10 coach in college football, and he's one of the more underrated coaches in college football. Really, the last few years, the two guys that I've been saying don't get enough credit nationally, Kyle Whittingham at Utah, who's won back-to-back Pac-12 champions and off to a 6-1 start without Cam Rising, and then also Mark Stoops. Now, Mark Stoops is not in my top 10 currently, but Mark Stoops has made Kentucky football matter. Where, remember when John Calipari last year was like, oh, we're a basketball school? The fact that John Calipari had to apologize for saying, oh, we're a basketball school, shows the dent and the impact that Mark Stoops has brought to Kentucky. Because Mark Stoops could get a bigger job than Kentucky. And John Calipari isn't wrong when he says Kentucky is a basketball school. But you see the power of football, and you see the power of a guy like Mark Stoops, where he could basically, because he was annoyed, force John Calipari, who is the king at that school, to have to bend the knee and apologize to Mark Stoops. So here are my top 10 currently. In at number 10, some people may say this is premature, but everywhere this guy has gone, he's won. And now this is his first big-time job. And he's only lost 2 games the first 2 years on the job. And he is stuck. Well, not stuck, but those 2 losses that he had were 8 points or lower. In at number 10 is the current head coach of the Washington Huskies in Kalen DeBoer. Number 9, this guy has won a lot of games, has only lost 6 games in his college coaching career, but the last 2 years, lost to Michigan. The last 2 years, hasn't won a Big Ten championship. saved his image a little bit, but in a loss against Georgia, it is Ryan Day in at 9. 8. This guy got off to a bad start this season. He got off to a bad start last season, still found the way into the SEC championship game. But with that being said, this year it's different because you already have 2 losses. You're probably not going to the college football playoff, barring something crazy happen, because no 2-loss team has ever made it to the college football playoff. But that is the head coach at LSU, a part of the Tiger family. And that, of course, is Brian Kelly. So Kalen DeBoer 10, Ryan Day 9, Brian Kelly 8. In at number 7, someone that I've been critical of, and I do think he's an overrated coach because he doesn't win the big games, but he has produced multiple Heisman Trophy winners, whether it's Baker Mayfield, whether it is Kyler Murray, and then also Caleb Williams, and then had a Heisman Trophy finalist in Jalen Hurts. It's Lincoln Riley. But Lincoln Riley has won a ton of Big 12 championships, and then he lost all 3 of those college football playoff games with 2 Heisman Trophy winners and a Heisman Trophy finalist. And even though I loved my conversation with Brendan Rice, and I thought his response to Emmanuel Acho was very good, yeah, it's not likely and it's not expected that USC now gets to the college football playoff with already having 2 losses on the resume, and they haven't even played their toughest games of the season yet. So that's going to be 2 years where Kyle Whittingham has owned you, which Utah beat you twice last year. They beat you 1 time so far this season, and you're not going to be going to a college football playoff appearance with the best player in college football right now. In at number 6, I go with Kyle Whittingham. Back-to-back Pac-12 championships, could win a 3rd straight one this year, and this one will be the most impressive because he's doing it without his best player in Cam Rising. In at number 5, and he was very close to being in the 6th spot, but I put him at 5 because he got to a college football playoff. Now, I got to see what he's going to do at his biggest job in Wisconsin, and there's been some ups and downs so far, but when Luke Fickell takes Cincinnati to the college football playoff, he's a damn good coach and now has more resources at Wisconsin. Number 4, this guy has fallen off. He is arrogant. He is insufferable. And I don't know how much longer he's going to be in the top 5 if he doesn't adapt with the times. And he needs to embrace NIL. He needs to embrace the transfer portal. And he needs to stop putting his foot in his mouth when he talks to the media. But the results are the results with Dabo Swinney. And I'll put him in at number 4. 3, a few years ago, this guy was considered a disappointment. Yeah, he got Michigan to a better spot, but he did not take them over the hump. The last 2 years, he's done that, taking care of Ohio State, winning 2 Big Ten championships, and now is really thrown right into a scandal and cheating allegations. But he has a team this year that, in my opinion, is the best team in the country, and it would be a disappointment if Michigan, and it would be a failure if Michigan does not win the national championship this year. Number 2, this guy was king for the longest times, but then his student started to get the best out of him after he owned his student for so many years. That is Nick Saban, who has saved his season with that performance up against Tennessee, where in the second quarter, it looked like their season was donezo. They were about to go get their second loss. And then the next thing you know, boom, big third quarter performance. They get that lead up against Tennessee, and they didn't look back. And right now, the king of college football, King Kirby Smart over at Georgia. So my top 10 coaches currently in college football: Kalen DeBoer 10, Ryan Day 9, Brian Kelly with the LSU family in at number 8, Lincoln Riley 7, Kyle Whittingham 6, Luke Fickell 5, Dabo Swinney 4, Dabo, Jim Harbaugh 3, Nick Saban 2, and Kirby Smart in at 1. Real quickly, just because I brought up Nick Saban, I want to play you Nick Saban's thoughts on the whole Michigan sign stealing scandal. This was courtesy of the Pat McAfee Show.
There's no reason that you just can't tell the quarterback what the play is rather than having signs and signals and 3 people signaling and all this stuff to try to get the play, which is more difficult for the players, incidentally, because they all got to get the sign because everybody's going no huddle. And for the defensive players who are going against the fastball team, all 11 guys got to know the signals. All 11 guys got to know the signs. because they're going fast and you can't communicate it, rather than just being able to tell somebody this is the call. So that would clean up all this.
He's 100% right. And Matt Rule also said earlier in the week, like in high school, they have the headset technology. In the pros, they have the headset technology. I sound very old when I say that. The headset technology. In college football, you have all these dopey signs. It makes no sense. Just put a headset inside the quarterback's helmet. Put a headset inside the defensive player on the field that's calling or that's getting the signs from the defensive coordinator, usually the linebacker. That's what you need to do. And then all this sign stealing and changing your signs and having this Marine scout things out, it all goes away and it's all avoided. Real quickly, I just want to go around the room, back to the Hard Knocks conversation of CBS Sports Radio hosts. If you had to do weekend hosts only, we get a lot of big weekend hosts from other networks. Who is the weekend host that you would like to see maybe do an in-season Hard Knocks to get them a little bit more publicity with the CBS Sports Radio family? Go ahead. Stu, you got one?
I know he doesn't host every weekend anymore, but for me, it'd be Ken Carman from
1000%.
Cleveland.
That was the guy I was thinking of, too.
He is the guy that I just know has a really interesting life outside of work, and I'd love to see him behind the scenes.
Ken Carman is America's favorite uncle, especially when he's singing that song, and I said, here we go again. It's the Cleveland Browns, and it's 1st and 10. When he's drinking some vodka, and his wife is running away saying, there's drunk Uncle Ken again. We got to get away from that crazy guy. You know who will also be fun? Imagine a little camera on Jody Mack with all those betting slips and all the coffin and all the personality. Billy Jack, we're ready to rock. That's a legend there in Jody Mack. I feel as if the listeners would love to see Jody Mack behind the scenes. So that's where I would go as well. Carrington Harrison would also be very underrated. We went out with Carrington in Kansas City. He lives a pretty cool lifestyle as well. All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. Buyers and sellers next. NFL trade deadline quickly approaching. Who should be buying? Who should be selling? We discuss on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
And you can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone all season long. You can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports, or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. All righty, cue me up a little NFL music, por favor. Whoa, what was that in the beginning? That sounded like a little remix version of the NFL music with that beat drop. I thought we were about to hear like some...
It's the NFL mix, only on the Zach Gelb Show.
DJ Stu, spin that you know what. All righty, I see you, son. All right, give me the teams here. I'll tell you if they should be a buyer or a seller.
The New York Jets.
The New York Jets, I guess I would lean more buyer than seller, because I do think this team can contend next season as long as Aaron Rodgers is back. So you don't want to trade off too much where then you hurt yourself for next season. And I do believe that this is a team that they have an opportunity to make the playoffs. I don't think they will, because ultimately Zach Wilson will be bad, but that's a kick-ass defense. And that's a great wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. You have Breece Hall, who is a very good running back. I would lean more buyer than seller, because it would be more so out of fear of selling too many pieces that you may need for next season.
Los Angeles Rams.
The Rams should be sellers. I just don't think the Rams really have a window of being a really good team for even this season. Like, the Steelers last week is a humbling loss. The Steelers have a good defense. They don't really have much on offense. I know they have Pickens. Freiermuth is banged up. Najee Harris, I know he had a big touchdown late, but he's been up and down. I look at a team like the Rams and I say, where are you going towards? And if it's just to make the playoffs, that's not the standard. You have some good pieces. You don't have a lot of draft picks the last few years, because Les Snead said F those draft picks. You got valuable pieces that are getting towards the end of their career, like an Aaron Donald. I would look to try to get something back now and reset your organization. So the Rams should be sellers.
Los Angeles Chargers.
Ooh. They should be sellers, but they have to be buyers because of who's running that team. Tom Telesco and also Brandon Staley can't get too comfortable. So those guys aren't in a position right now to sell. So even though they probably should sell, they have to be buyers, because if you sell, I think your fate is already solidified if you're Brandon Staley. But notice how no one's talking about Tom Telesco, because pretty much everyone acknowledges, oh yeah, the coach is the problem. The roster's actually pretty damn good.
The New England Patriots.
Sell, 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 sell. Tank. I'm actually annoyed. I can't do a gritty. But I would have been grittying over the weekend if they would have actually lost that game, because you have to tank, 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 tank. You know that song Twerk, where it's like twerk, 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 twerk? You got to tank, 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 tank. That's what the Patriots need to do. They need to try to get this ship back moving in the right direction. You can't do that with the way that this roster is currently constructed. I don't really know what they have to sell, but I want this team to be as bad as possible so they can get the best draft pick.
The Green Bay Packers.
Sell. This team's not good. You have some good defensive pieces too. I know you're trying to evaluate what Jordan Love is, but I think there's legitimate questions about Matt LaFleur and also Jordan Love too. I would sell maybe a piece or two and try to get some better draft capital to go get some more talent on this team and younger talent on this team when Jordan Love's in a make or break year a year from now.
Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, this is the easiest sell ever. But just like the Chargers, can they sell? Because David Ziegler and also Josh McDaniels, like, they shouldn't have security with their job, but with the way that Mark Davis runs things, which is usually bat bleep crazy, maybe they do have assurance. But I would sell if I'm the Raiders. Josh Jacobs should no longer be there. Davante Adams, we need to free Davante Adams, but he also has to catch the football too. Because there was a fade last week where he should have caught it after all the bitching and complaining that he's done about, oh, I only got two receptions in a win, blah, blah, blah. Like, play the small violin. You're not wrong, but it's not a good look to complain in a win, and then you're wide open, and they hit you right in the hands, and you drop it. Yeah, sorry. That's a bad look for Davante Adams, but they can get a king's ransom for Davante Adams, and we've seen how rich the price tags have been for wide receivers. Well, if you're like Tyreek Hill, I thought the Raiders would have had to give up a little bit more for Davante Adams than what they actually did, but you know what I'm saying, where receivers are a really hot item now, so the Raiders should sell because they're nowhere close to winning, and they do have some talented pieces.
The New York Giants.
Sell. They should trade Saquon Barkley, and I wouldn't even hesitate about it. And maybe you kind of cut bait with Darren Waller as well, because he struggles to stay on the field, and he could still be productive when he is on the field. But this Giant team is not good. They were not as good as what their record indicated a year ago. You knew they were going to regress. I didn't think they would fall flat on their face. Let's not get all nuts after one win up against the Commanders. This team should still sell.
The Houston Texans.
Can I say stay put? Like, they shouldn't sell. I don't think you have to buy just for the sake of buying. Now, if you could go get a young wide receiver or a wide receiver to complement what you have, which is just like Nico Collins, who's having a good season, I get it. But I don't think they have to do anything because they did a lot this offseason. So I would lean more towards buying than selling if it is a young piece. Like, you don't have to feel desperate to buy, but you could be talked into buying something that maybe you didn't think was available. Don't just do a rental. Make sure that it's for a 2-3 year long-term security.
The Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns should be buying, because the Browns have a great defense. Offensively, Nick Chubb is out, and he's out for the season, which stinks. You have solid wide receivers. Amari Cooper's good. Elijah Moore needs to figure out what's going on all the way up here. You have a solid offensive line. Watson can't be trusted. You know, we talk about running backs. Derrick Henry would look pretty damn good in a Cleveland Browns uniform. Saquon Barkley would look good in a Cleveland Browns uniform, especially with how nasty this injury is for Nick Chubb. Even though you paid him, he's now had 2 nasty injuries, and you don't know what he's ever going to be like again. This AFC North is open. This AFC North is the best division in football, and the AFC is not as strong as what we thought. Yeah, the Cleveland Browns should be buyers, especially because the last 2 weeks they won games against the Colts. That could have gone either way, and the 49ers, that could have gone either way, but you won them, so take advantage of that and buy.
The Washington Commanders.
Sell. And even if that means the guys that are calling the shots right now in the roles that are traditional in terms of trading for a football team, they're not really calling the shots. This is a Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, and et cetera operation. I think you sell some of those defensive names. I know they declined the 5th-year option on Chase Young, so he's in the final year of his deal. I've been reading some stuff about Montez Sweat. Maybe you do Jonathan Allen a favor after all the disappointments that he's been through, and you just trade him, and he had a fiery rant, and it was filled with a bunch of expletives as well after that loss to the Giants. I would start to trade some of those defensive pieces because it looks like we're going to a rebuild with the Commanders right after this season.
The Minnesota Vikings.
The Vikings a week ago, I would have said sell. But after this past win against the 49ers and how their schedule is not that tough, I would buy if I'm Minnesota. And I give credit to Brian Flores. The defense for Minnesota has done a nice job. Offensively, you're going to get Justin Jefferson back. Jordan Addison has been a really good young addition outside of just stupidly speeding right before the start of the season and the offseason. He's going like 150 miles an hour. That was just dumb. But he's been a big-time factor, as you've seen. Hawkinson as well. You could probably use a running back because Alexander Madison, who I had high expectations for, has not popped. And they're still looking for someone to replace Dalvin Cook, who's now disgruntled with the New York Jets. So, yeah, I would say they could use a running back. They could use probably another defensive piece, and I would go buy because the NFC for the wild card spots are pretty much wide open, and maybe you could turn this thing around after the dreadful start. So there are some teams that we are looking at that could buy or sell that are 50-50 right at the deadline, and we try to push them over the goal line to make their decision a little bit easier. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a break. We'll come on back. We will preview the football game tonight that kicks off Week 8 in the National Football League between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers visiting the Buffalo Bills. Who has more pressure on them tonight? We'll discuss on the other side. Plus, you'll hear from Jerry Jones, and we'll get his thoughts on the Dallas drama choking Cowboys after the first 6-7 games of their season. So we'll do that all on the other side. But first up, standing by with the latest CBS Sports Radio update. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the Bucs got off to a strong start, winning their first 2, but after 6 games, they're at the 500 mark and will take on the Bills, who've also struggled in the first half at 4-3. Tampa Bay has dropped back-to-back games. Quarterback Baker Mayfield said battling adversity, part of life in the NFL.
I think any of those experiences, you learn how to weather some of these storms, and you learn how to grow through them and handle them when certain situations come. So for right now, it's, like we keep mentioning, just get our stuff fixed, be more detailed, fundamentally sound, and good things will happen.
The Bucs hope to jump on the Bills early. Buffalo's been outscored in the first half over the last 3 games, 30-10. Sixers and Bucks tip off their respective seasons, both with designs in a championship, of the Bucks reloading in an attempt to win a second title in 3 years, acquiring Damian Lillard from Portland. The Suns go for back-to-back wins to start the season against the Lakers, who dropped their opener. Rick Carlisle gets a multi-year extension from the Pacers. Indiana improved by 10 wins last year in his second season of his second stint with them, and Sean Miller had his contract extended at Xavier through 2029. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, at home, in your car, and, of course, on your phone and tablet. Find us on your local affiliate, SiriusXM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Rock your body. Hey, this is Howie.
And this is Nick.
From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Today's memorable moment is sponsored by Prevagen. Prevagen is the most recommended memory support brand by pharmacists. The last time the Bills and Bucks squared off was in December of 2021. Tampa Bay led 24-3 at halftime, but Josh Allen and company scored 3 second-half touchdowns to force overtime. And in the extra period, the legendary Tom Brady found Brashad Perriman on a 58-yard touchdown pass to give Tampa Bay the 33-27 victory. I remember that game. That was a wonderful game. And I was doing Eye on Football, and that was a 4 o'clock game or 4:25 p.m. Eastern time game. And we never had a moment on Eye on Football where we didn't get all the games in. And I was in the final 15 or 20 seconds of the segment before the show ended, and you had the Brady touchdown to Brashad Perriman. So that was a fun one indeed. As far as the game tonight, who has more pressure on them? You have two football teams where for a little bit Tampa Bay was surprising people and Buffalo has been disappointing people. But you look at Tampa Bay, I think last week they showed you it's going to be a lot of up and down football. When you lose to Detroit, you lose to Atlanta the last 2 times out on a football field, and now you sit there at 3-3, and you're coming off like a bye, and you're like, okay, where are we really heading to? And you go off of that loss, that tough loss, to Atlanta last weekend, and you've already had your bye week before, and it's like, okay, we see they could be a solid team. Like, they have a good defense, but who have they really defeated? You beat the Vikings. You beat the Bears. You beat the Saints. You play the Eagles, you lose. You play the Lions, you lose. You play Atlanta, you lose. And, right, the Eagles are a Super Bowl team. A team like Detroit, they have teetered between contender and then just really good team. And Atlanta, I think, is better than you inside your own division. But it's really how Tampa Bay lost that game last week. The offense really couldn't capitalize after every time your defense made a play or Desmond Ridder did something stupid last week for the Falcons. Like, Desmond Ridder last week got to the 1-yard line and fumbled the ball not only once but twice, and then fumbled the ball at his own 11 or 12, or at the opposing team's 11 or 12. So that's 3 fumbles in the red zone, and Tampa Bay can't win that game. So I look at Tampa Bay. They have a really good defense, and they could force Josh Allen to make some mistakes tonight and be uncomfortable. But I don't trust their offense. And I love Mike Evans, but Baker Mayfield is what you get. It's an up and down quarterback. So in terms of pressure, I still don't know what Tampa Bay can accomplish. Like, if you ask me, Zach, what's the best thing Tampa Bay could do this year? Win the division? And you don't say, like, win the division. It's not with confidence. It's win the division? Because you look inside the NFC South, Carolina stinks. The Saints are just set up to disappoint. And then you look at Atlanta. Yeah, I think Atlanta's the best team in the NFC South. Their defense under that new defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, is good. But then offensively, they have the looks of an offense that could really click. But they don't have the right point guard. They don't have the right signal caller. Because we know Bijan Robinson, if he's not out because of illness or injury, and the Falcons basically just lie to all of us and screw all of us over that have Bijan Robinson on our fantasy football team. You have Tyler Algier. You have Kyle Pitts. Drake London, he has mossed some people this year with the way that he has caught some of these footballs. So you have pieces, but on offense, you just don't have that dude at quarterback. And you're asking him to do more than what he should be doing. So I look at Tampa Bay. If you tell me Tampa Bay wins the division, I'm not going to say, yeah, I expect it, but I think it's plausible. But you could lose this game tonight and still go on to win the division. Because even though these teams got off to a better start than we thought they were going to, and the Saints are 3-4, Tampa Bay's 3-3, Atlanta's 4-3. It seems like if you win 9 games this year in the NFC South, you should win that division. This is really the chase to win 9 games. And can Tampa get to 9? Sure. I think they'll come up short. They're more like 7 or 8. And I do believe Atlanta will win this division. So I do think it's from an importance standpoint, this game is more important to Buffalo because Buffalo plays, even though the AFC is not as dominant as we thought it was going to be, the AFC is still crowded. And Buffalo, for the first time in the last few years, is in danger of not winning that division because the Dolphins are 5-2. I know Buffalo already beat Miami, but they play again. But right now the Dolphins are 5-2. The Dolphins probably beat the Pats this weekend. And Buffalo can't afford to fall another game in the standing because Buffalo was so disappointing last week. And really the last few weeks, you go from crushing the Miami Dolphins to losing to the Jaguars in London, jet lag game. Like, give me a break. Then you barely survived and you squeaked one out against the New York Football Giants. And then you just lost to the Pats where you were down by 12. You come back and then you give them the game back with Mac Jones to Mike Gesicki. Buffalo needs a good performance tonight. And Buffalo needs to win the game tonight. Because it's all about timing in the NFL. If you got the Bengals 3-4 weeks ago, okay, no problem. But after this game, Buffalo has the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. So if Buffalo loses tonight, you're looking at a team that's 4-4. And they could be heading to 4-5. And also, after identifying storylines for years, every show in the country tomorrow will be leading, man, the Buffalo Bills have fallen. The Buffalo Bills are dead. Sean McDermott needs to be fired if you drop this game tonight. So save yourself the headache tomorrow. Save yourself what would be an awful long weekend and then a season on the line type of game. But Buffalo loses this game tonight against a team that they're better than in Tampa Bay. Whew, they're going to take a beating tomorrow. Because we've seen Buffalo go from a team that's in the AFC title game, then to a team that had a divisional round game 1, and they blew it in 13 seconds. Then last year, they get to the divisional round barely after Skylar Thompson almost beat them in Buffalo with the Miami Dolphins, and they get embarrassed by the Bengals. And then you start out this season, 4 plays into the season, Rodgers tears his Achilles. You lose that game to the Jets. Then you beat the Raiders. All right, let me give you a participation trophy. You beat the Commanders.
Ouch.
Ooh. Well, it's just, come on, the Raiders and the Commanders. Like, what are we doing here?
I know, but Stu's sitting right here.
Well, Stu's given up on that team. He's not wearing any Raiders gear this week. He's embarrassed with this football team.
Yeah, that's far gone. Yeah. Forget it at this point.
But put it this way. Stu's not giving up on the team like he's still a fan. He's just realistic. He's not one of these delusional, moron, dopey fans that go, oh, my team sucks, but I'm going to tell you they're good just because you're telling me my team sucks. Stu is the most honest person with his teams. He doesn't get too high, but he will fall right into the ground when
get
his
pretty
teams
low.
are bad. You do get pretty low, I will say. But really, like, you look at Buffalo, their wins this year are the Raiders, the Commanders. Great win against the Dolphins. But that's the highlight of their season, the Dolphins win. Then they beat the Giants. All right, let me smack you on the behind. Nice job. Way to go, sport. You found a way not to lose that game, and you got bailed out by the officials. So this is a big one for Buffalo tonight, where I don't care how you win, you just have to win. And then you could maybe start to win some people back up against the Cincinnati Bengals coming up a week from now. I do think Buffalo wins the game tonight, but because of the way Tampa Bay has their defense, the spread is 8.5. If you maybe put a play on the game, I would plus the 8.5 points, but I do think Buffalo is going to win. Actually, what I did this morning, I was in the bathroom where I do some of my best thinking, and I'm trying to get together a parlay. You know, like my father, when he used to go to the bathroom when I was growing up as a kid, he'd read the newspaper, right? You always had that image and things like that like an old man reading a newspaper on the John. Well, now I sit on the John and I say, okay, this game tonight, let's see how we're going to bet. And I came together with the parlay tonight. Stephon Diggs, anytime touchdown. I know he scored last week, but Stephon Diggs is annoyed, so they're going to cater to his feelings. They're going to get him in the end zone on a national stage tonight, Amazon Prime. Let's remember, Al Michaels, you're a legend, but wake up for the game tonight. Have a little energy. Have a little excitement. Kirk Herbstreit, don't be telling us like, oh, we got to praise the Saints just because the Saints showed up in the second half. I want a good broadcast tonight, good scene in Buffalo, crazy fans that are in the parking lot right now. They've probably been in the parking lot since 5 in the morning. And you got like mustard and ketchup getting thrown on people and wings and drunk people going through tables. So that's going to be a happening joint tonight in Buffalo, one of my favorite NFL stadiums. I think they call it New Era Stadium, but I still call it Ralph Wilson Stadium. But that's a great stadium, great atmosphere. And I do think it's a close game. I do think Stephon Diggs gets in the end zone. So that's the first step of the parlay. The second step of the parlay is I did something that I usually don't do. I bought some points. I did an alternative line. I always think it's kind of cheap when you do the alternative line, just from principle. But if you win money, there's nothing wrong with that. So I parlayed. I bought 2 points to make it Buccaneers plus 10.5. So the parlay, Stephon Diggs anytime touchdown, and then also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 10.5 points is what I concocted together. And I got to check the odds here real quickly, but I think it was at like plus 227 or something like that. Let me just pull up my handy-dandy app real quickly. Yeah, plus 272 on Stephon Diggs anytime touchdown and Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 10.5. So that is the Zach Gelb play for tonight's game. All righty, real quickly, let me hear from Jerry Jones, the owner of the Drama Dallas Choking Cowboys. He was on his weekly hit with Sean and RJ at 105.3 The Fan. Love those guys. And this is Jerry Jones's thoughts on his team after 6 games of the season.
I look at where we are, 4-2. I will take it for sure. We've got better football ahead of us. I don't doubt that at all. No one should doubt that. And we're getting better. I like where we are with our personnel today, and so I'm not thinking in any way that we need to upgrade our roster.
I think you got to upgrade your roster, though, Jerry. And I think you got to get someone that could complement Tony Pollard, and you should listen to Emmitt Smith, who, even though he said he's annoyed Zeke isn't back, I think Zeke is past his prime, but you need a little different flavor in the backfield for a 1-2 punch. And I know you can't get Saquon Barkley because the Giants won't trade you, but you should go get a physical bruising back and place a few phone calls for Derrick Henry. But I'm kind of surprised that Jerry will take this start 4-2 because you lose to the Cardinals. They're bad. You got blown out by the 49ers. Like, who do the Cowboys beat? The Giants, the Jets, the Patriots, and then the Chargers. Not a great list right there. Let's see. The next time the Cowboys can make an impression, this week against the Rams, who cares? Eagles, okay. You still play them twice. If you want to say the Seahawks, you got the Dolphins and the Lions. All right, there's some games there. But still, come playoff time, I think we all know how this is going to go. Dak, big moment. Dak driving late against a legit team. And then the Drama Dallas Choking Cowboys show up in the best moments. Where that's when they become the Drama Dallas Choking Cowboys. All righty. Anyway, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Big thanks to John Bacon. Big thanks to Brenden Rice as well. Each and every one of you for participating today. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. Big Football Friday and the start of the World Series. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.